So I'm going to do a little tutorial on how to do tapestry crochet with the Harley-Davidson pattern. I've gone ahead and printed out 5 pages of the PDF pattern just so you can see it here. As you can see, I started running out of ink, so you really need to have your cartridge completely full because I only printed out 5 pages and there's a total of 20 altogether. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tape these together so that the colors match together, and then I will come back. Okay, so I have chained a chain here. Now I've taken a section that's about 73 blocks long. So I've made a chain that's 73 chains long plus 1 for turning. Now as you can see here, I've marked every 20 stitches with a safety pin, or you could do it with a stitch marker. I just like to do that because it's easier for me to keep track of how many stitches I have instead of having to sit there and count to 167 or how many ever this is. It's a lot. So since I'm old and I need to have help, I use my little markers. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead, since I've only done this, blocked off this area here, I'm going to go ahead and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows of black, and then I'll start on the 9th row and I'll bring back in to see what I'm doing. Okay, so I finished the strip of the 8 rows that I need before I start on the doing the tapestry part. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some yarn on my bobbins. I've already put some yarn on my red yarn on my bobbin, and I have some orange yarn on a bobbin, and now I'm going to just show you how to do a bobbin with some yellow yarn. So these, if you need to make some bobbins, I have a tutorial on my blog called Making Your Own Bobbins. I think that's what it's called. I'll put a link down at the bottom of this video so you can see how to do it. I just find bobbins a lot easier to use because they don't unwind while you're crocheting, which is a major pain in the butt. You're still going to get some crossover and tangling, but at least it won't be rolling away from you, so that helps a lot. So I'm just going to wind. I'm not going to put a whole lot of yellow yarn on here because, as you can see on the pattern itself, I'm just going to do a few rows. There's not a whole lot of yellow. It's mostly orange and black at this point. Let's put a little bit more in here and I'll come back. Okay, so what I've done here is I've counted off the first 18 black stitches. So I've already done the first 17, and now I'm going to do the last stitch. The reason why I waited to show you this one is because I'm not going to complete this stitch because I'm going to add on the orange yarn at the top of the stitch. So let me just okay, so I'm going to start the last stitch of the 18th stitch. And I just pull it up, so I've got 2 loops on my hook, and I go ahead and get the orange yarn, and you want to have a little bit of a tail going on here, and I make a loop and I put it over my hook and I just pull it through, and then just kind of pull this down to make it so that it's even with the other stitches. So now what I do is I take my black yarn and I'm going to stitch it inside of my crochet stitches now. And then I'm going to go ahead and make my first orange stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and put this tail in there too, just for a couple of stitches, and then leave it out because I will weave it in later. So I'm going to go ahead and do the first orange stitch. And you can see I've got those 2 stitches underneath it. I'm going to go ahead and do one more so you can see that again. So I'm carrying these inside the stitch. So I go insert my hook, and then I wrap the yarn around it so these 2 are still in there. Pull it up, and then go ahead and complete the stitch. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and count how many orange stitches that I need to do before I get to the red stitches on this first row here. So with a paper pattern, you can go ahead and write it in. My favorite way of doing tapestry crochet is actually using an Excel file, and I keep it on my computer, and I just zoom into it, and then you can put your cursor on each of these little squares and move it along and just count as you go. And then when I'm done with a row, I just kind of color in at the end. You can tell it to fill in a color at the end where the white spaces are, so you know that you've already done that row. But for now, since I'm using the paper pattern, it's a little easier to show you on here on the video. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and count these. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So I'm going to go ahead and just do up to the 20th stitch. Just go ahead and stitch them all up. But then when I get to this last one, that's when I want to do what I just did with the 18th stitch in the black one, is just start the stitch. So I'll be back in a minute once I've done the 20 stitches. Okay, so I've done the first 20 stitches of the orange. You can see I've carried this black yarn all the way through because it's not hanging off the back here. So now I'm going to go ahead and start the last stitch of the orange group here. That'll be stitch number 21. So go ahead and I start it. I still keep that black yarn in there. Now I'm going to add on the red yarn. So we have 3 stitches of the red, so that's pretty easy to count without having to write your numbers in. So I've got my next bobbin here, just unwind a little bit of it. Make a loop, just like I did with the orange. And go ahead and pull in the red. Now we're going to be carrying the orange and the black yarn. I'm going to go ahead and carry the red tail for a couple of stitches too, just to make sure it doesn't come unraveled. And I'm just going to make sure that the orange stitch is about even with everything else. Okay, so I'm going to crochet with the red yarn. So make sure you get all 3 tails underneath that stitch. Go ahead, start 1. Now since this is only 3, I can go ahead and carry this tail through the whole thing actually. So I go to do a full 2 stitches and then I start the 3rd stitch. Now I'm going to pick up the orange yarn because as you can see, I don't know if you can see on the pattern here very well, I just did these 3 stitches. Now I'm going to start with the orange. Okay. So I'm adding on the orange yarn. And you can actually drop the red yarn at this point because, I don't know if you can see here on the pattern, the red doesn't start up again in this row. It doesn't come back in until the next row. So we're going to drop the red yarn and let it hang off. Alright, so I've got my 2 loops of the red. I'm going to start with the orange. I'm going to still carry the black, but drop the red. So I'm just going to pull it back here, over here, so it's out of the way. Push it back over there. Carry the black and stitch with the orange. And go ahead and kind of pull that red yarn so that the stitches are even there. Don't pull too hard. Alright, I'm going to do a couple of more and then you can get rid of this tail too. I'm going to do a couple of more of the orange stitches here and then I'm going to count and see how many we've got to do on the other side here. It's probably about the same as I had on the other side, but the flame is not exactly symmetrical, so it will make sense for you to go ahead and count each row. Otherwise, it'll end up off from the pattern. Okay, so I've got 2 there. So I'm going to go ahead and count these. How many orange stitches there are? I'm going to move the camera so you can see a little bit better. All right, so. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm going to come around on the camera. Let's see. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So you can see, oops, I didn't write 22. You can see that it's not symmetrical. So I'm going to need to do I'm going to go ahead and do the 21 stitches and then I'll come back at stitch number 22. Okay, so I've done the 21 regular stitches. So I'm getting right here and I'm going to go, I don't know if you can see that very well. Let's see. I've just done this one and I'm getting ready to do this one. So just the same as I have done before. I'm going to start the stitch. I'm still carrying the black yarn underneath. Remember we dropped the red yarn off over there. But I'm still carrying the black yarn. So I'm going to start this one, and now I'm going to bring the black yarn up, and I'm going to go ahead and complete the stitch. Okay, so what you should probably do now is go ahead and carry the orange yarn just for 2 stitches, because in the next row, if you can see here, the orange stitches come out 2 stitches further than they do in the first row that we're doing. So I'm just going to carry it for 2 stitches. 1, 2. Then I'm going to drop that orange yarn, so I'll just move it over here to the side. I'm going to get it a little untangled there. And then just go ahead and finish the rest of the stitches on the row. Just go ahead and do 1, and then I'll be back. Okay, so since I'm just doing a shortened section of this, if I've done this right, I should end up with 9 stitches here at the end, which I have. I've got 9 stitches, and just count the loops on the top here. So I'm at the end of the row, so what I'm going to do now is chain 1 just like you would for a regular row. Now I'm going to turn the whole piece this way. Now this is where it gets a little tricky, and maybe some of you are getting confused. So I'm just moving all of my yarn over here this way, because now I'm going to be moving in this direction. So the first row I came right to left, now I'm moving left to right in reading the pattern, but I'm still crocheting right to left. So it is a little confusing. Let me get my pen here so I can show you where we are. So we're right here. This is the first stitch we're going to do. We just finished here, and we're heading this direction on the pattern. Okay? So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches, and then start the 7th stitch. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've done the first 6 stitches, and I've started my 7th. Now you can see here where I've carried the orange yarn, how it's sort of poking out here a little bit. Kind of pull that, not real hard, but you want to pull it hard enough so it's sort of covered over. Now the good thing is that since we're kind of stitching backwards, this is really going to be more the back of the Afghan, because the words will face the other direction. So most of the stitches that you're carrying will show more on this side, although they do show on the other side too a little bit. But I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit. Alright, so now we're going to add the orange yarn here. And we're going to start our first orange stitch, remember, carrying the black yarn. And we have 2 here that we didn't have on the last row. So we've got, now we're going to, in a minute, going to start adding in the yellow yarn. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches before we add the yellow yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and do 7 stitches and start the 8th, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have done the 7 stitches and the 8th one started. I'm still carrying the black yarn. Now I'm going to be carrying the orange yarn as well, and I'm going to add on the yellow yarn. Now there's only 1 stitch of yellow here. That's why actually when I do tapestry crochet, I like to actually just use like maybe 2 to 3 colors. And like with the Harley Davidson Afghan, what I did was I crocheted in black and orange, and wherever anything was red or yellow, I went ahead and crocheted orange as well. And then I went back when I finished, and I actually added the white yarn on, and I crocheted with, so I was crocheting the emblem with the black, orange, and white. But when I finished the Afghan, then I went back and I cross-stitched the yellow and red stitches on top, because it's just a whole lot easier to, and then you're not carrying as much yarn with you, and you also have to have a whole lot more bobbins hanging off, because when you have things that are separated, as far as like this yellow is here, like it's here and over here, you really want to have 2 different bobbins for this, because you don't want to carry all that yellow yarn in there, because this just makes it really lumpy. So let me go ahead and add the yellow yarn on just like we did before. Make a loop, pull it through, make sure your stitch is even with the others. Carry the tail for a couple of stitches and carry the orange and the black. The reason why I like to just crochet with the orange and the black for this Afghan is because they're the 2 major colors. And then for the emblem I add the white in. I'm going to drop the tail and actually, whoops, I messed up here. There's only one yellow stitch, so actually what we do, let me start that over again. I'll go ahead and start the orange stitch. So there's only one stitch. We actually only just start the yellow stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and start it. And then you can just drop the yellow altogether because it doesn't need to go with you. And then carry the black and go ahead and add the orange back in. And go ahead and pull that down a little bit. Okay, so now we go, let's see, can you see that? Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 orange stitches before we add one black in. So I'm going to go ahead and do 5 regular oranges and then start the other orange. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add the black yarn in just for one stitch. So I'm just going to start the black yarn. I carry the orange yarn, then I go ahead and bring the orange yarn back in. So it's just the one stitch. And now I'm going to go ahead and start the orange stitches again. And now I've got another, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 orange stitches before I get back into the red again. So I'll be back in a second. Alright, I just wanted to show y'all, make sure that as you go along that you pull the thread that you're pulling through here. Just kind of pull on it so that it's not all hanging out as you go along. Don't pull super tight because you don't want to squish your stitches up, but just enough so that it's not all hanging out the back. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and start the 6th stitch here. And this is where I'm going to add on the red. Now, I could have carried the red yarn a couple of stitches here because it goes 2 stitches beyond there, but I didn't that time. So what you can do is just kind of bring it across, and then when you do the stitches, cover up this yarn that's hanging over. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it across here. Now make sure you carry your orange yarn too. I'm going to go ahead and loosen up this red a little bit so I have some room here. Alright, so you're still carrying your black and your orange, and you want to cover up this right here. So you just kind of go over the top of it too. The good thing about the flame part, since it's all kind of mushy-mashy anyways, because it's supposed to be a flame and you know how fire doesn't really have a regular color, the colors can be all kind of mixed together and it doesn't look bad at all. It's when you get up to the letters and stuff that it's a little more noticeable. Alright, so there are, let's see here, get it up there. Alright, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 red stitches. So I'll go ahead and do those. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done the first 7 stitches. This is the one I completed. Make sure you continue to pull these so that they're not drooping off the back. Alright, so now I'm going to add in the orange yarn. Alright, let me unravel this. See, you can see it does get twisted up even with the bobbins, but at least they don't roll away from you. And I'm going to loosen up a little more orange yarn here. Alright, so now we're going to do the orange stitches. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches here for the orange. So I'll go ahead and do those. Alright, so now I've got 1 black stitch to do. So I'm going to, right now I've dropped the red and I'm just doing the black and orange. I'm going to go ahead and do 1 stitch of the black. And then I'm going to bring up the orange. Alright, so on this side, since I want to show y'all how to do the cross stitching, I'm going to go ahead and leave the yellow yarn off. So I'm just going to go ahead and do these last stitches here all in orange. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 stitches in orange. Okay, so I've done the last 14 stitches. You can see over here. Now I'm heading back this way. So I'm just going to go ahead and add on the black and drop the orange. Or in this case, since it's about 5 stitches out, you can carry it for 5 stitches. I think I'll go ahead and do that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just drop the orange. And one thing you can do when you're not using your bobbins is you can wind them up so that they're not dangling off. And then I'll go ahead and finish the row. Okay, so I've finished the row, and as we do at the end of every row, chain 1 and turn. So since I've kind of wound up my bobbins here a little bit, I'm just going to sort of hang on to them as I turn this, so hopefully I don't get it too tangled up. You can see I've got these bobbins hanging off over here. Now the black yarn I just left as a ball. You can put it in bobbins. This is the yarn you'll be using the most throughout the pattern. So I out of laziness just left it in the full skein. But if you want to do it in bobbins, you can do that as well. And you can do a bunch of different bobbins across if you want. If you have smaller bobbins and you can do small amounts of yarn for the small, little pockets of things here and there, you can do it that way too. Alright, so now we're headed back in the right to left, and we've done this row, and now we're on row 3, and we're going to be headed back in this direction. So the odd numbered rows, we're going to be going right to left. The even numbered rows are left to right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the next about about 5 or 6 more rows, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to do the cross stitching on these yellow stitches here. Okay, I'm still working on those 6 rows that I was telling you about, but I just wanted to show you what you do when you end up with just a little bit of yarn left. So I had a little bit of tail here, so I did a couple of stitches with it, and now I'm going to add back in some orange yarn because I'm not done with the yellow stitches yet. And so I just leave both of those tails hanging off, and I'm going to go back in and weave them in later. So that's all you do. And then just carry this tail a little bit just to anchor it down. A couple of stitches, and then you can drop off the tail. And I'm still just carrying the black yarn and continue on from there.